Okay, roll up your sleeves, everybody. Let's get started. Our first speaker for Opening Insights is the founder of Localis, a tourism intelligence platform helping governments, destination marketing organisations, and tourism businesses make smarter data-informed decisions. By bringing together multiple data sets, Localis provides a richer, more actionable view of the tourism landscape, reminding us that only by combining diverse data can we tackle the complex challenges that lie ahead. With today's Opening Insights, please welcome Robbie Dalton.
Good morning, everyone. And who is ready to get stuck into some heavy data and graphs before 8:30 in the morning? Everyone loves it. All right, over the next few minutes, I'm going to take you through some trends that we're noticing about how Australians are travelling, both domestic and internationally. And then we're going to unpack about what that means for Queensland. This isn't just about the numbers. It's the stories that the data is telling us and how we can use those insights to create more resilient and smarter decisions for destinations. The latest TRA data shows, and this is across Australia, that overnight trips rose 2% in the June quarter to $27.6 million. But at the same time, spending across these trips actually dropped by 3%. So we've got this fascinating situation where people are still going out and they're still taking trips, but they're spending less and less money when they do so. Thankfully, in Queensland, it's not quite as pronounced, that problem. Spending is up and trips are still up as well. But we are starting to see the crunch where spending per trip is slowly coming down. And why is the average spend per trip dropping? Well, simply put, it's the cost of living crunch. And the cost of living crunch is reshaping how Australians are travelling. 4 out of 10 people are booking cheaper accommodation. And those same proportions are taking fewer trips overall. More than a third of people are shortening their trips, or they're choosing to stay at a lower cost destination. In total, 83% of travellers last year said they had to reduce their travel costs in some respect. But what's the silver lining here? Well, despite everyone feeling the pinch in the economy, Australians are still travelling. And this is most pronounced with the younger generation. Among the 25 to 29-year-olds, spending on essentials dropped by 2%, and discretionary spending has dropped 3%. This is a big signal, and we pulled this demographic out specifically because this group has historically been the group who refuses to cut back on anything. And if they're pulling back, it tells us that this mindset shift runs deep. So even though younger Australians are tightening their belts, they're cutting back on discretionary spending, they're cutting back on other spending, there is one thing that they are not willing to cut back on, and that is travel. In fact, nearly half of Australians say that travel is more important than discretionary spending. And 1 in 5 say travel is their absolute number one priority. It's not about whether they will travel, it's about how they travel. And one of the biggest behavioural shifts we're seeing is where these dollars are being spent. So this is not to freak people out, this is to give you an idea about the competition that we're facing. Indonesia, specifically Bali, is now Australia's number one destination for international travel from Australia outwards. 1.74 million Australians visited Bali last year. That's a 55% increase in the last decade. And what's fascinating of that same time period is that Bali has changed its image. Once known for bintang singlets, fights in the streets, and end-of-season footy trips, it's now an absolute hub for luxury, wellness, and culinary travel. Every single week, there's 227 flights from Australia to Bali, which is a staggering number. And last year, because the demand is so high, Jetstar added 114,000 new additional seats to take people from Australia to Bali. Out of those 114,000 seats, 113,000 of them were bought and taken. So Bali shows no signs of slowing down. But it's not just Perth that's driving this demand either. Obviously, Perth and Western Australia, they absolutely love Bali. Melbourne, since 2019, Melbourne to Denpasar has increased the number of seats on that route by 52%. And in that same time period, Melbourne visitation to Queensland has actually slowed down dramatically. Japan's visitation from Australia has also grown 200% over the last decade. Helped by the weaker yen, the Australian dollar now buys 25% more in Japan than what it did a decade ago. And the reverse is true for the US. When the Australian dollar was parity more than a decade ago, Visitation to the US peaked from all of Australia. We look at that now, and the Australian dollar has weakened against the US dollar, and visitation has dropped off. Together, these patterns tell a very clear story. Australians, and in particular younger Australians, are increasingly becoming value-based travellers. It sounds obvious, but here's the proof. They're seeking experiences that feel exceptional for the price. So that's Australians travelling domestically and out. Let's take a look about international travellers. And it's great news. So internationals are flocking back to Australia, which is fantastic. It's kind of what we knew was going to happen, and it's great. Queensland is also doing very, very well with this. We're not quite at the national benchmark, but we're still well above double-digit growth since 2019, which is fantastic. But let's take a look about how this splits out region by region. Unfortunately, the growth isn't universal across every region, obviously. A big note here is that tropical North Queensland, which already has a gigantic base of international visitors, has grown 14.2% year on year. There's more people visiting tropical North Queensland than ever before. Sunshine Coast is also a really impressive call out here as well. They're 3 times the Queensland benchmark for international visitors visiting the Sunshine Coast, which is great. But as you can see there, not everyone's doing really well, so we need to look at the reasons why people are travelling. We know education and VFR are extremely important reasons why internationals are coming to Australia, but there is another major reason why people from international countries are coming down under. Major events. From an events perspective, most people know that Magic Round is the biggest driver of domestic visitation to Brisbane and to Queensland every year. But what most people don't know is that since the inception of Magic Round, the number of Kiwis that have come across the ditch specifically for Magic Round has more than doubled. And this goes the same for the UK and obviously Papua New Guinea as well. In the lead up to the Olympics, understanding how international visitors move around and then tracking the dispersal from major events across the state becomes vitally important. And I have an awesome case study here to prove that point. The British and Irish Lions tour. Everyone in Brisbane on the days of the game saw how much the city was awash with red. But what people might not know is that it wasn't just Brisbane it benefited the entire state. Our data shows that wasn't only significant increases in UK spend across all of Queensland, as you can see here, but 7 of the 10 regions that we're tracking recorded record UK spend for the month of July. On record, which is incredible, considering it's a football game. From the far north, which again has a huge base already, they saw an incredible 94% increase year on year. All the way to the outback, which has this perception of being very hard to get to, an 80+% increase of UK visitors to the outback. Incredible. All the way down to the Gold Coast, Sunshine Gold Coast, obviously, which saw the biggest increases overall. And that's despite the games being held in Brisbane, so it really does drive dispersal. We even heard from our partners across the ditch in New Zealand, a different country. They also saw massive increases in UK spend. So it's absolutely important and vital that we start tracking the dispersal from major events. And who are the major merchants and operators that benefited most from this huge boom? It's no secret that the Poms love a pint. In fact, one estimate put that during the 6-week tour of Australia, this is not even going back, there were 2.1 million pints of Guinness consumed in Australia over that time period. And while Magic Round takes the crown for the biggest weekend spend on restaurants and bars in Brisbane, the Saturday of the Wallabies Test was the singles biggest day of spend Brisbane has ever seen across hospitality, which is incredible. We've been tracking for the last 7 years, but when we speak to some of the publicans, they say it's at least the last 20 years. So it's safe to say the publicans in the Sunshine State were absolutely loving this event. But in between pints of Guinness, the Poms explored, they dined, they shopped, and we saw this that everywhere they went, there was spend increasing on retail, pharmacies, and everything else in between as well. It's proof that well-planned events don't just fill stadiums. They fill tills all across Queensland. And this is why events are such an important pillar of the 2045 destination strategy. So as a quick wrap up, I told you it would be quick. Australians are still travelling in big numbers, but perceived value is becoming the deciding factor. International visitors are coming back in record numbers, and it represents a really important opportunity for everyone in this room. And major events are becoming one of the most powerful levers for economic growth and driving dispersal across the state. And Queensland is perfectly positioned to take advantage of all of these trends. All right, that's it for me. I hope you all have a fantastic Destination Q, and good luck to your awards tomorrow night.